Okay, so you want to buy a cruise ship. Buy a big boat, fill it with tourists, sail somewhere warm, and count the money while everyone else drinks cocktails by the pool. It sounds like the most fun business on earth. A floating hotel that never runs out of guests, moving from one paradise to the next. But here's the strange part. A modern cruise ship is one of the only businesses in the world where you can sell every single room, pack the ship to the last bed, sail completely full for an entire year, and still lose money doing it. The ticket that got the passenger on board is often the least profitable thing that happens on the entire voyage. And the company that owns the ship you're picturing right now probably pays a lower tax rate than the person cleaning your cabin. By the end of this video, you'll understand exactly how that's possible, how a cruise ship actually makes its money, and why it's almost never the part you'd expect, why the ticket price is deliberately kept low, sometimes sold at a loss on purpose, and what happens the moment one of these $2 billion machines stops sailing, when the thing that made you rich turns into the thing that can sink you. Let's start with what it actually costs to get in. There's no small version of this business. Even the entry point is enormous. A small, older, secondhand cruise ship, something built in the 90s, with room for maybe 2,000 passengers, will still cost you somewhere between $50 and $200 million used. That's the bargain bin, that's the fixer-upper. A mid-sized modern ship, brand new, runs you around $750 million to $1 billion. Carnival's Celebration, Norwegian's Prima, Celebrity Beyond, these all land in that range. Real ships, real hotels, 6,000 passengers, built from scratch. And then there's the top of the market, where the numbers stop sounding real. Royal Caribbean's Icon of the Seas launched in 2024 at an estimated $2 billion. Its sister ship, Star of the Seas, cost about the same. $2 billion for a single vessel. That's more expensive than most skyscrapers. It's roughly 10 times what the Titanic would cost to build today, adjusted for inflation. For that money, you get 20 decks, nearly 10,000 people on board counting crew, the largest water park at sea, and 8 distinct neighborhoods on one ship. Here's a number that reframes the whole thing. On a ship like that, the cost works out to over $260,000 per passenger bed. You're not buying a boat, you're building a small floating city and paying for every citizen's home before a single one of them shows up. But the $2 billion price tag is just the entry fee. There are 2 costs nobody warns you about, and they're the ones that actually decide whether you survive. The first is fuel, and the scale of it breaks people's brains. A large cruise ship burns somewhere around 1,000 gallons of fuel per hour, not per day, per hour. For a mega ship operating at full tilt, fuel can run into the tens of millions of dollars every single month. And here's the trap. That cost barely moves whether the ship is full or half empty. The engines burn the same fuel to move 10,000 people or 5,000. So the moment your bookings dip, your single biggest variable cost stays exactly where it was, eating you alive. The second hidden cost is the one that makes this entire industry work the way it does. It's not really a cost, it's a loophole. And it's the reason cruise ships are floating cities that answer to almost no one. Look at the back of nearly any cruise ship, and you won't see the flag of the country that owns it. Carnival is an American company headquartered in Miami. Its ships fly the flags of Panama and the Bahamas. Royal Caribbean, also American, has historically registered in Liberia and flies the flags of the Bahamas and Malta. This is called a flag of convenience, and the practice started almost 100 years ago, during Prohibition, when American ship owners registered in Panama just so they could legally serve alcohol on board. But it stuck around for a much bigger reason. By registering your $2 billion ship in Panama or Liberia or the Bahamas, you're no longer bound by the tax laws, the labor laws, or many of the safety and environmental regulations of the country where you actually do business. The result is staggering. The major cruise lines pay an average corporate tax rate of under 1%. Not 15, not 21, under 1. A company generating billions in profit pays a smaller share to any government than almost any small business on land. And it flows straight through to labor because the ship answers to the laws of a tiny flag state and not to American or European labor law. The crew who cook your food and clean your room can be hired from developing countries on contracts that would be illegal almost anywhere on land. A cabin attendant might work 11 to 14 hours a day. 7 days a week, for 8 to 10 months straight with no days off, and take home somewhere between $400 and $700 a month. The entire cost structure of your floating city is built on the fact that legally, it isn't really anywhere at all. So that's what it costs to get in and what it costs to keep running. Now, the real question: how does this thing actually make money? And this is where almost everyone gets it wrong. Here's the number that changes everything. When you pay for a cruise, roughly 70% of the fare covers the ticket, and only about 30% is what you spend on board once you're there. So you'd assume the ticket is the business. It isn't, because those two piles of money are not the same kind of money at all. The ticket revenue is brutal. Out of every dollar of fare, a huge slice immediately walks out the door. Travel agent commissions eat around 11 to 15%. Then come port fees, fuel, food, the crew payroll, marketing. By the time a passenger's ticket has paid for the privilege of moving them across the ocean, there's almost nothing left on the ticket alone. The margins are thin enough to make you nervous. The onboard spending is a completely different animal. That 30%, the drinks, the specialty restaurants, the spa, the excursions, the photos, the casino, the gift shop, carries a gross profit margin of 70% or more. A bottle of water, a cocktail, a $40 steak dinner in the specialty restaurant when the buffet was already free, a shore excursion that the cruise line resells to you at a huge markup while paying a local operator a fraction of it. Now you understand the real design. The low ticket price isn't generosity, it's bait. The cruise line will sell you the fare at almost no profit, sometimes at an outright loss, because the ticket was never the product. The ticket's only job is to get you on board and lock you inside a closed economy for 7 days. An economy where they own every store, every bar, every restaurant, and there is no competitor for 1,000 miles in any direction. You are not the customer of a cruise. On board, you are the customer of a shopping mall that happens to be floating, and you cannot leave. Watch how the ship is designed once you know this. The buffet is free, but the good restaurants cost extra. The tap water is fine, but the drink packages are pushed at you from the moment you board. There are art auctions, spa specials, photo packages, slot tournaments, and a casino that only opens once the ship is in international waters, where the rules that would apply on land no longer do. Every hallway is a gentle nudge toward another place to spend. The genius of the modern cruise ship is that it took the casino's oldest trick: trap the customer in a windowless world with no clocks and nowhere else to go, and set it out to sea. And it works. Industry-wide, cruise lines run net profit margins around 17%, which is nearly double what many large hotel chains manage. A single full sailing of a megaship can generate somewhere in the range of $1.5 million to $2 million in pure profit in 1 week. On the biggest ships, that can work out to well over $200,000 in profit for every single day at sea. So if the money is that good, why did I tell you at the start that you can sail full and still go broke? Because now we get to the part that sinks people. Everything I just described only works while the ship is moving and full. The entire model rests on a knife's edge called the load factor, the percentage of beds filled. Cruise ships routinely need to sail at or even above 100% occupancy just to stay healthy, because the costs are so enormous and so fixed. The fuel, the 2,000 crew, the port fees, the insurance, the debt payments on that $2 billion loan, almost none of it goes down when your bookings do. A hotel with empty rooms just loses a little. A cruise ship with empty rooms is still burning 1,000 gallons of fuel an hour to sail those empty rooms across an ocean. That's the trap. Your costs are a fixed monster. Your profit comes almost entirely from onboard spending. So if anything at all, keeps people from booking or spending, the whole structure inverts almost overnight. And the world proved exactly that. When sailing stopped completely for a stretch during the pandemic, the ships didn't just sit quietly and wait. An idle cruise ship still costs a fortune. It still needs a skeleton crew, maintenance, insurance, and a port to sit in. The major lines took on billions of dollars in debt just to survive the ships doing nothing. Royal Caribbean, Carnival, Norwegian, all of them borrowed enormous sums, and years later, they were still aggressively paying those loans back. Interest on that debt now quietly eats into every fare you buy. There's an old saying in the industry that a cruise ship is a hole in the ocean you pour money into. Because when the machine stops, it doesn't become a cheap asset you can just park. It becomes a $2 billion liability that costs you money every day. It isn't full of spending passengers. The same scale that prints money at full occupancy prints losses just as fast when the occupancy is gone. So let's put it all together. How much do you actually make if you do this right? Scenario 1. You buy one used mid-size ship for around $150 million. You run it hard, keep it full, keep the drink packages flowing, and you clear a solid single-digit millions profit per year once fuel, crew, port fees, and debt are paid. Recession-sensitive, fuel-sensitive, exposed to one bad year wiping out 3 good ones, but real. This is a genuine business, and it will keep you up at night watching oil prices. Scenario 2. You don't buy a ship, you build a fleet, and you become a cruise line. This is where the real fortunes are, because at scale, the model becomes something else entirely. Royal Caribbean Group reported total revenue around $4.9 billion in a single quarter, with over $1 billion in net income in that same quarter. The whole industry moves tens of billions of dollars a year, from tens of millions of passengers, most of them American, feeding profit into companies that pay under 1% in tax. At that level, you're no longer running boats. You're running a set of floating tax structures that happen to sell vacations. So if you decide to buy a cruise ship, remember the one rule this entire business is built on. The ticket is never the product. The ticket is the bait. The moment the gangway closes and the ship leaves the harbor, you're not selling a voyage anymore. You're selling everything that happens once there's no way off. Fill the ship, and the ocean pays you. Empty it, and the ocean sends the bill. Either way, the water never stops asking for money. You just have to make sure you're the one collecting it,